I believe you can hear me speak also without the aid of a loudspeaker. I'm Jonas Stoltzfus. I wish my wife was here. Her name is Judy. We have a farm, a small beef farm called Jujo Acres Farm. Now you know who's in charge on our farm. The reason my wife isn't here, she lost both her mom and her dad in the last 3 months. We just had a memorial service for her dad on Saturday, so my wife's in recovery mode, so you understand that. We've been farming organically for 32 years at our farm. The reason we started farming organically was that one spring I decided, we had our farm about 8 years up to that point, that I would revamp the meadow. I got Agway in, they sprayed their Roundup on, and I proceeded to get a no-till drill to till it on. My wife stood on the front porch and cried. That's the last time I used chemicals on our farm. My wife knew intuitively it was the wrong thing to do, and I followed her wise wisdom and quit using chemicals. I have a lot more I could say. I'm not sure how much time I can take, but there's a story I would like to tell you, which is a sequence or a sequel to what went on here in a different way. It can end up differently in a similar rate. If I have time, I'd love to tell that story. I just heard it on Friday night. And incidentally, at that meeting I was at, Kristen, who made this film, was there, and I heard her speak. Anyway, how much time may I take, Maria?
Please, go ahead.
Okay. This story I want to tell you happened in Kentucky. A food buying co-op was set up. A fellow named John ran it. He wasn't there when one of the people who were at the co-op said, hey, they came, meaning the state health department came. They came to the co-op, put a quarantine across the milk vendor, and put like a state order, you can't take it across the food boxes, and said, we'll be back. The owner, John, this was, I think, a Friday evening, the owner, John, overnight reviewed the state constitution and discovered these guys can't do this. He called all his constituents the next morning and said, come get your milk, it's your milk. Come get it. Get all this stuff out of the store that's yours. And it was all theirs. John didn't own the stuff, his constituents owned it. And he said, over the weekend, call the legislators. In Kentucky, the legislators have public telephone numbers. They don't have private telephone numbers. He said, call your friends and call your friends' friends and call these legislators by the thousands. Well, the legislators got telephone calls the whole Memorial Day weekend. By Tuesday morning, they were humming. They got a hold of the health department. They said, go make it right. You did the wrong thing. It's probably the first that ever happened in this nation that a health department was made to go back and undo some of the stuff they did wrong. But that's what you call power. And you folks own the power to change the way the food system is now done. My wife now sells directly to people like you. I want to tell one more health story, then I'll quit. I'll let you ask questions. A group of people at our farm about 6 to 8 weeks ago, one couple from Bucks County came, wanted to buy half a beef, and in our conversation the woman shared, I can drink no dairy of any kind without violently reacting to it. I suggested perhaps it's not the dairy, but what the cow's eating that she's reacting to. I said, go see an Amish friend of mine who does not give anything but grass to his cow and try that milk. Get a letter or an email about a week later. She said, you know, it worked. I got no reaction to that milk. None. You and I'm sure can tell a lot of stories about health. People getting better eating our products. A girl in Carlisle cured herself from Crohn's disease. And she claimed much of it was from raw, or rather good, food from our farm. Anyway, I think I'll quit talking now. I'll answer any questions, so that you have.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Rory, Kraft. I teach philosophy here. And in some sense, the issues surrounding this, I think about them in a, in a philosophical sense. Like, what's going on and how do I approach sustainability, environmental ethics? And there was 2 points in there in the film that really struck home to me. One is, it's it's always fun to see Joel Salatin appear on screen. Because if you've ever read any of Salatin's works, he can be overbearing, and he can overwrite, and he can do lots of things that can make you really dislike him. But one of the things that he says repeatedly is that when he took over the land that his father had first bought for the farm, and their land has now grown, I think, 5 times as large as it was when his father first bought the land, they decided that they were not going to go into farming thinking about crops, thinking about livestock. They grow grass. And so their whole system on Salatin's farm, on Polyface's farm, is designed around how can they grow the healthiest grass that they can. That's why he has these odd systems that he's come up with where he moves the animals around so many days and all of these things. It's so that they can get their grass healthier. And in turn from doing that, the ecosystem at Polyface has repaired itself, has come back, and there's spots on the farm that used to be raw bedrock and now have 3 feet of topsoil on them, as if it's going through this process. So, as I was seeing Joel on screen again, talking about obliquely some of the problems that he's had with the FDA and the chicken operations that he's had and issues on there, it made me think about that aspect, thinking about the land as a whole unit. And when the farmer that markets the milk in California, the one that talked about, not the one that was raised, the one that talked about the process they went through, that they manage the whole system. And exactly that process that the Amish farmers in Lancaster were able to do, they manage the whole system. They start with the earthworms and they go all the way through to the market. And from a philosophical perspective of thinking about what's going on in the farming community, what's going on in the agricultural community, in sustainability missions, I think that's the biggest shift that we can make, is when we stop thinking about the market as being the commodity, but the market as being part of this continuum. I still remember when I was just really making this transition myself, going into Central Market, and I kind of knew, these farms are like a little strange. They sell organic things. I don't know what's going on. But I decided to start working out that way, and it was towards the end of the summer season. And I go through, and Dave, if you know the way the stand is set up, it kind of has the back side, which tends to be the second stuff. And he had a little box of raspberries. Well, where did these come from? Because I'm the good, studious person. I have now learned this is what you do at farmers markets. You ask them where it came from because it could still be coming from Georgia or somewhere else. And Dave looked at me and said, "From my farm this morning." And that moment there made me love Dave East more than anything. But also that's exactly this process of it's the whole system that we have to be aware of as we're going through. And a lot of what the film was showing, and I certainly also would hope that we don't go away feeling sad from it, is that the lesson is to take charge of that whole system. And the problems that was being displayed here were disruptions in the midst of the system. So, if I step away from a teacher mode into sort of a citizen role, I mean, the advocacy point is to be part of the system, be out there, meet your farmers, meet your marketers, ask the questions, so that you can understand when this is going on, so that you can then try and get the word out that you don't want your system disrupted this way, and that the industrial model is a disruption to that system that you won't take. So that's my 5-minute blurb.